Good evening, folks. We're gonna get started about a minute early here, just to give people some time to get on and kind of get situated or whatever. But fun day today. Spent some time playing Star Wars Monopoly with the family, and got a little bit of work done. Played some Minecraft with my son, and spent some time outside. Had some hail last night. So I had to do a quick clean of the garage and pull the Jeep in. I left my truck out. I was hoping to get some of the dents out by hitting it with hail. Not sure if that's how that works, but hey, Mom, welcome aboard. Anyway, but it's been a nice, cool day today. Very, very enjoyable. Earlier today, I got another one of my science, freedom, and education videos done. Studied biogeography. And I'll be getting that posted up tonight, as well as the next section of all. I think I've got posted up through chapter 20, and then some extra videos posted up. So I'm going to be posting up the next slew of videos, including this one, tonight up on the YouTube channel. So anyway, just it's been a productive day. All these days have been pretty productive for me. I'm trying not to treat it too much like a break, so much as an opportunity. So definitely having a lot of fun and getting a lot done. Very excited about that. Anyway, tonight we're going to do Genesis 44 and 45. We're almost there, almost to the end. It's been going by a lot faster than I had originally thought it might. If you'll remember, last time on Tuesday, we left. Joseph was providing grain for all of Egypt and selling it to other nations. That we're going to have 7 years of famine. This happens in the first 2 years of it. What's going on here? But his brothers come and they purchase some, and Joseph recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. So he does a little bit of testing. The whole time he does some things to kind of test their personalities because of the way they treated him. Thank you, Stephen. Glad you're here. But he tests them, and he gives them some things that he knows. He's not really going to do anything bad to them, but they don't know that. And so he's kind of testing what their character's like. And so they went down, found the money in their sacks after they returned. But he accused him of being spies, and so Simeon had to stay behind, and he said, bring back your littlest brother, and then I'll know you're not spies. And I'm not sure how that's a test of not being spies, but they fell for it. And so they stay for a little while, and then they have to travel back. Remember, travel takes a long time. So, we're heading into the second year. Yeah, Steven's collared shirt. I was told I had to wear my best when I'm talking about God or something like that. So here I am. Hey, Jennifer, welcome aboard. Actually, no, this is just, I had to, hey, Brian, or I'm sorry, Laird Brian, welcome to you, glad you're here. My friend Brian found out he's a true Scottish lord today, and he's been talking about it all day today, so congratulations on that. Very excited about your 2 pixels worth of ground over in Scotland. So, But the dryer was broke, and so we got a little backed up on our clothing, and so I'm stuck with a couple of collared shirts. That's where I'm at. But I got it fixed. It wasn't expensive. Saved myself $170 of labor getting that fixed. Very excited. So anyway, Joseph sends his brothers down, and Simeon's not with them. They eventually come back with Benjamin, and he's like, oh, I guess you were telling the truth. So he releases Simeon, and they're all having a meal. So we're at the end of that meal, and they're all packed up and ready to head back. Everybody's going. All the 11 brothers, save Joseph. That he's not going, obviously, but the others are about to head back, and so that's where we are. Yeah, Mom, that was sarcasm. I was being sarcastic. So and normally it's my superhero T-shirts. That's why Stephen was making a comment. So. Yeah, I've seen your professional attire. Honestly, I mean, I got an article about it up on my website. If you search for "robes of white, God's dress code," and read through that. That's pretty much how I feel about it. God's dress code is a heart that's right with Him, and a spirit that is focused on seeking after Him and righteousness and all that. He doesn't really care about your clothes as long as you're not dressed in a lewd fashion or supporting something that's stupid. But yeah. Well, it wasn't actually, Stephen. It wasn't money. It was like I think I paid the coil was like $25, and then I had to need another little part, which was $17, and then just a little bit of time knocked it right out. It's the second coil I've replaced, so I've done it before, but it wasn't that much money. But I looked up the labor cost on it. I saved $170 doing it myself. So that's okay, Mom. It's fine. You don't have to be right about everything. So. But anyway, we're at the end of that meal, and so they're packed up, and he's getting his servants to pack up their donkeys here. So we're going to start in Genesis 44. I'm reading out of the King James, got the ESV up for some modern English stuff, and then I've got the Hebrew open, although we're probably not going to need it tonight. So Genesis chapter 44, verse 1. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack's mouth. So he's going to do the same thing, where he puts the money that they paid back in the sack again, so that they're, and remember, this is double now, because they returned the money last time, so he's putting the money back again. And now here comes the final test. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the sack's mouth of the youngest, and his corn money. And he did according to the word that Joseph has spoken. So the servant puts the... oh, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, Mom needs to read it. But they put the money back in the sacks, and then they put the silver cup, like the important... Hey, Paul. Hey, Tracy. Welcome aboard. We're just getting started on Genesis 44. We're in verse 2. So they put the cup in the youngest. They put it in Benjamin's sack. And so as soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city, and not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them, say unto them, wherefore have you rewarded evil for good? So here's the test. The brothers get their stuff, they go, hey, Ryan, welcome aboard. And they don't get very far, and Joseph's like, all right, go catch up to them now, and this is what I want you to say to them. And so he says, wherefore have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby indeed he divineth? You have done evil in so doing. So Joseph's going to be pretending to do like magic or whatever, some divination here. They don't know that he's actually Joseph. He doesn't believe in that kind of nonsense. But he is going to pretend like he's an Egyptian diviner and whatnot. And so it's a bit of a trick, because Joseph is the one that put the cup in there in the first place. So there's no divination, but that's what he's going to pretend. So the servant overtakes them in verse 6, and he speaks unto them these same words. And they said unto him, wherefore saith my Lord these words? God forbid that thy servant should do according to this thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sack's mouth, we brought again unto thee out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of thy Lord's house silver and gold? So the first question, hey Linda, welcome aboard. So the first question they asked here is, why would you say this to us? We found the money in our sacks, and we brought that back to you, and then we paid you in addition for the corn that we got this time. Why would we steal from you? So it doesn't make any sense to them. They're starting to question, and so they don't believe. Hey Rosalind, they don't believe that what has happened, what the steward is accusing them of, is even there. And so again, one of these grand pronouncements that they make, they tend to be a little dramatical. And so they're like, verse 9, with whomsoever of thy servants it be found, both let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondmen. So they're like, okay, fine, if you search through our sacks and you find the cups, whoever sack you find it in, then you can kill him, and the rest of us are going to become your slaves. Hey, Bobby. So, why would you say something along those lines? If this is akin to the whole I swear. People get real grandiose with when they think they've been caught on something, especially I think when they haven't done it. I always go back to the whole Princess Bride thing where Inigo Montoya's up on the cliffs of insanity, and he's like, "I swear with my honor by my honor as a Spaniard." And Dread Pirate Robert says, "No good. I've known too many Spaniards." That whole thing in there. So these guys are just doing this big, grandiose. I swear it's not true. If it's true, then then you can kill whoever you find it, and the rest of us will be your slaves. That's how sure they were that it wasn't true. But the interesting thing about this, and the interesting thing about swearing itself, the New Testament tells us not to swear. Like I take no pledges personally. I don't say any pledges. Don't say the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't swear oaths. If I've had to testify before as a witness, I don't swear oaths because God said, let your word be your word, and don't swear. Don't swear by heaven because it is God's throne. Don't swear by his footstool or by the earth because it's his footstool. Don't swear by your own head because you can't number the hairs on it. Just let your answer be yes or no. And so that's what these guys should have done. They should have said, we didn't do it, and then left it at that. And that should be sufficient. When you get all dramatical like this, most likely the people that you're trying to convince are even more convinced that you probably did what you're saying you didn't do. That's my opinion of it, but that's kind of the example we get here. These guys are just being so dramatical about all of this. And so, what's the point of all of this swearing and all of this grandiose stuff? Just say we didn't do it and be done with it. So verse 10, he said, "Now let it be according unto your words." And so the steward's like, "Don't need that much, but he with whom it is found shall be my servant, and then the rest of you will be blameless." And so that's the compromise he makes. He's like, "Look, I'm not going to kill anybody, but whoever I find the cup with, that person's not going to be the slave, and then the rest of you can just go." And so they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground and opened every man his sack. And he searched and began at the eldest. Now here he is, given another hint. He begins at the oldest and left at the youngest. So he goes through all of them from in age order. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack, of course. And he knew it was there because that's where Joseph had it put. Then they rent their clothes and laded every man his ass and returned to the city. So they put the sacks back on the donkeys and they head back into the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was still there, and they fell before him on the ground. So these guys, you can imagine just that pit of the stomach is just that feeling. You can the shock value and I don't know if any of you have ever been. I get this feeling just when I get pulled over by a police officer. I was pulled over a few months ago. There's a turn lane that goes right by the neighborhood Walmart. It's a real short street, but the turn lane is fairly long, but it's double yellow up until like 3 car lengths from the light. And there was nobody in that lane. There was nobody in any of the turning out of the Walmart parking lot things there, but the line to the light is incredibly long. So it's just inefficient not to go ahead and get in the turn lane, turn left. And so I got in the lane and turned left, and the police officer was waiting in line and pulled me over. And man, I just get this feeling like all the blood just drains out of me and feels like it kind of pulls in my feet. And it's just this real icky feeling that I get. Hey, Teresa. And so I can empathize with the feeling that they get. And me, I was just getting pulled over, and I didn't get a ticket or anything. She just kind of talked to me, and she said, "Hey, you gotta wait until the line breaks. You can't just pull over all the way up at the first Walmart entrance." And I said, "Okay." And she found out as a teacher. We had a good talk and everything. But I can imagine what these guys are feeling because they just realized that their little brother, that all of this drama has been about, is about to not go back and see dad. And they know that this means that Jacob is probably going to just die from grief. He's lost both of his sons from Rachel. And so the feeling that they have in the pit of their stomachs has got to be just awful. And they're on the ground, faces to the ground, and it's just I feel for him. I really do. As bad as they were to Joseph, I feel for him because he's really a test to him here. So Joseph said unto them, verse 15, what deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that such a man as I can certainly divine? So there he is. He's again making this claim to divination, to the magi thing or whatever. And I don't want to say he's messing with them. I don't think Joseph is doing that. I think he's really just testing them, testing out. And we're about to see the results of that. I think this is what happens next is really what Joseph is going for. He's placed the blame obviously on Benjamin. This is his full brother Benjamin from Rachel, and he's going to see how his brothers feel towards him, how they're going to act towards Benjamin. And so Judah speaks up. What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak, or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. And he said, God forbid that I should do so, but the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. And as for you, get you up in peace unto your father. So, Judah is accepting it. He's like, what can we do? We, obviously one of us is guilty. Benjamin is guilty. How can we clear ourselves? How can we make this right? And Joseph's like, well, I don't want to do this. God forbid that I should do this, but I'm going to make the person who did this my servant. He's going to be my slave now. But the rest of you are welcome to go back to your father in peace. And he's just really pushing that point home that this is my little brother, and they treated me so awful. How are they now going to treat my brother, the other son of Rachel? And so Judah comes near to him and kind of pulls him off to the side of it. He's like, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thy anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh. So he's like, let me talk to you. Don't be mad at me. I know you're second only to Pharaoh, basically Pharaoh. Can I ask a favor? So my Lord asked his servant, saying, have you a father or a brother? We said unto my, so this is Judah. This is Judah talking to Joseph. He says, you asked us, have you a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one. And his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. And thou saidst unto thy servants, bring him down unto me, that I may set my eyes upon him. And we said unto my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. And thou saidst unto thy servants, except your youngest brother come down unto you, you shall see my face no more. And it came to pass that when we came up unto thy servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, go again and buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot. If our youngest brother be with us, then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face, except our youngest brother be with us. And my servant, my father, said unto us, you know that my wife bare me 2 sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since. And if you take this also from me, and mischief befall him, you shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant, my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servant shall bring down the gray hairs of thy servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, if I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. So Judah is relating all that's happened in the last couple of chapters. Tells Joseph the story, just kind of lays it out. And he says, this is what my father said, that Benjamin's older brother has gone out from them, and his father believes that he's been surely torn to pieces and is dead. And now if anything happens to the younger brother, then it's just going to kill my dad. That's basically what Judah's saying. And Judah says, and I've taken responsibility for him. So if I can't return with Benjamin, then not only is my dad going to die, but I'm going to bear the guilt of that, and I bear the consequences of all that, because I became the surety, or I became the kind of the payment that I would guarantee his safety the whole time. So this is what Judah says based on that recounting of all that went on. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad a bondman to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. And this is Judah. This is Judah's moment to shine. Remember, when all of this went down, when they were going to sell Joseph, Reuben was against it absolutely, and he's like, let's not kill him. Let's put him in a pit, with the intent to rescue him and bring him back to Jacob later. So Reuben wasn't in on this at all. And then the other brothers were talking about it, and Judah's like, let's not kill him. Let's sell him. All right. Now Judah is showing that he has matured, and he's saying, don't take Benjamin. I will stay as your servant in his stead. So Judah is willing to sacrifice himself, to give himself for Benjamin. And Joseph is seeing what he finally has been wanting to see this whole time, this growth and maturity from his brothers. So Judah concludes, for how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father. He's like, I would rather stay here and be your slave than to return without Benjamin and watch my father die. That's basically where he's going with this. So, all right, so the charade is up. Joseph could not refrain himself. Chapter 45, verse 1. Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. So Joseph tells everybody that's not his brothers to leave. Get out. And he is weeping. He's crying so loud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. So all of these people that he told to get out, they're kind of listening, and he's crying so loud. He's wailing at all of this stuff that he's been holding, and all these emotions that he's been holding in this whole time. And he just oh, don't worry, Stephen. But he's just crying so loud that everybody hears him, even though they're not in the room. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Does my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. So he's like, no, I'm Joseph. He's finally telling them who he is. And he's like, is my father still alive? And they're so afraid. They believe him. They understand, okay, yeah, this is Joseph. We get that. But Joseph is now the second most powerful man in Egypt. And the only thing they can think of, because that's kind of where Joseph has been going with this, is reminding them of all that's happened with him, is, oh my goodness, we sold him. We sold our brother into slavery. And now he's the second most powerful man in Egypt. And he basically has our lives in his hands. So they're now terrified. They can't even speak. They're so scared. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. So there's the reminder. Now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here, for God did send me before you to preserve life. So now he's like absolving them of all that they had done. He's seeing that they have changed. And that's really what repentance is about. When we talk about repentance, especially in the New Testament, is a change in direction, a change in character. You've turned away from the things that you were doing that were evil. You turned from your sin and turned towards God. That turning has two parts to it. You had to turn away from bad, and you gotta turn towards the light, towards God. And so here, Joseph has seen that. He's seen that they've turned away from their selfishness and their hatred and all of the things they felt towards him. And now they're grown men, and they're mature, and they're willing to step in and give their lives for Rachel's other son. And so he's like, you sold me. Hey, Judy, welcome aboard. We're in chapter 45, verse 5. And he says, you sold me, but it was really God working through me so that I could preserve y'all's life. This is the way that God chose to preserve the house of Israel. Right. Yeah. So he's talking to them in a language they understand. That's part of how they recognized who he was. So now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that you sold me here, for God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years more, in the which there shall be neither earing nor harvest. And so Joseph knows, and he's letting them in on it. God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. So he's kind of letting them know God's been with me this whole time. God was with me when you sold me into slavery. He does lay the blame of that to them. He's like, you sold me into slavery. He doesn't say God did. He says, you sold me into slavery. But God has been with me this whole time. And because God has been with me, now I'm in a position to save the house of Israel, to save the house of Jacob. And we kind of see this with the Jews a little bit in Acts chapter 2, where Peter is preaching that sermon, and he says to the Jews, you crucified Jesus. Now, the brothers had middlemen, right? They had the Midianites in there and the Ishmaelites and then eventually the Egyptians. But the brothers are the ones that have the blame for ultimately selling Joseph to the Egyptians. So they completely ignore the middlemen, and the blame goes to them. Well, in the same way, who was the middleman for the crucifixion of Jesus? There's a lot of people that want to go and say, it wasn't the Jews that killed Jesus, it was the Romans. The Romans crucified. No. Peter says, you killed the Messiah in Acts chapter 2. He completely ignores the whole idea of the Romans, and he says that you did it there in verse 36. And so that's why they say in verse 37, men and brethren, what shall we do? They recognize that the guilt was theirs. So I thought that was an interesting little parallel. But anyway, Joseph said that God has sent me here for a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his house, ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye, go up to my father, and say to him, thus saith thy son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me and tarry not. So, yeah, same message, 50:21. We'll definitely get there. But he says, go get your dad. Tell him his son Joseph is alive, and tell him that I am basically the ruler of all Egypt next to Pharaoh, and he needs to get all of his stuff and get here so that I can use my power, my authority to preserve him and all of his things. And he says, and you're going to dwell in the land of Goshen, and you'll be near unto me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest you and your household and all that has come, that you have, comes to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, in the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaks unto you. So that's what Mom was talking about, that he's no longer using this interpreter. He's actually speaking to them in Hebrew. He's like, you gotta believe me, because I'm speaking Hebrew. What Egyptian is going to speak Hebrew? What Egyptian lord? And so he's like, so you've seen it. You know it's me. I know it's hard. You know it's me, and you know that. Look at the eyes of your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin. Look at our faces. You can tell that we look the same. And I'm speaking to you in Hebrew. You know all of this is true. So you can tell my father that. You tell him, hey, Joseph is alive. And you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt and of all that you have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. And I don't think Joseph's being arrogant here. I think he's just saying, tell him that he's going to be okay, and I have the power to make it okay. So he falls upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. So they're so happy to see each other. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. So finally, this dam of emotion just breaks. And they're finally past their shock and their terror, and they recognize that Joseph does not hold a grudge. and he is wanting to help. And so it just, you can just imagine the relief and the feelings that they have, and just the love that's breaking forth now after all the horrible things they had kept all their life, since the selling of Joseph. And now they're just this big group hug and all this crying and all this, and it's a joyful time because of that. So verse 16, and the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come, and it pleased Pharaoh well and his servants. So where it gets back to Pharaoh, that Joseph's brothers are here, and Pharaoh really likes Joseph because Joseph really helped out Egypt. And so he's just delighted that Joseph's family is there. And Pharaoh says to Joseph, say to your brethren, this do you, lade your beast and go and get you to the land of Canaan. Take your father and your households and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded, this do you. Take your wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. So Pharaoh hears about it. Not only does he concur with Joseph's idea, because remember, Joseph has command. Pharaoh doesn't hold anything back. He's like, Joseph, you got it. And so Joseph's already made the decree. Pharaoh seconds that and says, yeah, that's what you should do. On top of that, why don't you take some wagons back with you? That way you can load up all the kids and the wives, and they don't have to ride donkeys out here. So he helps out by even giving them more, and they're going to go and they're going to bring everybody back here. So you got some comments. First, for your brethren came imitators of the church of God, which are in Judea, for you also suffer the same things from your own countrymen, just as why is it not? It's not letting me click on the see more. Is this one of those things where you just keep pressing see more and you feel dumb? No, there it is. Just as they did from the Judeans who killed... Why is there a spot? Oh, that's my button. Okay, I feel dumb now. Who killed both the Lord and their own prophets and have persecuted us. They do not please. Yeah, so there's the blame of the Jews, the Judeans. They're the ones that killed Christ, definitely. Yeah, it definitely was an awesome moment. So anyway, Pharaoh says, here's some wagons. Go get everybody and bring them here. We'll give you the best place. Also, regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. In other words, don't worry about some things that you might have to leave behind. Because if you have to leave those things behind, you're going to have so much good stuff here in Egypt, it's not going to matter anyway. And the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them, and the children of Israel, that's literally the sons of the man Jacob called Israel. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. So he's loading down, little brother, showing a little bit of that favoritism. But, it's justified, I think, at this point. So... and to his father he sent after this manner 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So here's some supplies to get you some food so you can get back up here. Bring all your stuff. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, see that you fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt and come into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father, and told him, saying, man, Joseph is yet alive, and he is the governor over all the land of Egypt. What a message. Jacob's thought Joseph's dead all this time. His favorite son is dead all this time. And here they come back after all of this tension, all of this, it's a wonder Jacob didn't just kill over dead right there from this news. And Jacob's heart fainted. I can just imagine him just kind of grabbing his chest and maybe stumbling back looking for a chair and just kind of plopping down after hearing that. Just the disbelief. Joseph is alive. Oh, and by the way, he's the second ruler of all of Egypt. And he can't believe it. And they told him all the words of Joseph which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. So he finally accepts the truth. He is super excited at this point. He's up and he's about. And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. Can you imagine? thinking that your son, I've got a son, a lot of you guys watch and have children of your own, thinking that your child is dead, and then finding out years later that the child is not dead. At least for the son and the prodigal, the prodigal son and the father kind of had an idea that he was still alive. But here Jacob thinks that Joseph is dead, and now he hears that he's alive, and he's like, yeah, I don't even care that he's the ruler of all Egypt next to Pharaoh. He's like, it's enough that Joseph is still alive. That's all I care about. And so he says, I'll go and see him before I die. And that's his bucket list right there. I don't care about anything else. I'm just going to go see Joseph before I die. So what a positive note to end tonight on, is just all of this excitement. Joseph is reconciled to his brothers, even after all the evil they have done, just like we can be reconciled to Jesus as our older brother, the Son of God. We can become sons of God too. Not First John, but the Gospel account of John, chapter 1, verse 12, that we can reconcile to our Father, and we can be thought once dead because of our sin, but then we are now alive again. And this is the type antitype thing going on here again. But Joseph is us in a way, in the sense of, in our understanding examples, the type antitype are not, they're meant to convey one thing. But here, Joseph is thought dead and separated from his father forever, and now he's alive again. And so it's an amazing story here, and all of this reconciliation and all of the joy that comes from this story. And Moses is telling this story, and there's lessons to be learned for sure. But just, can you imagine, they're out wandering in the wilderness, and Moses is maybe there's a big fire, and they're all sitting around it, and he's relating these things orally, and they're hearing these things. Hey, Solomon, you're kind of catching us at the end here, but you're welcome to go back through and watch and ask if you have any questions. But Moses is telling them this story by the fireside, and you can just see the faces of the Israelites as they hear Moses talking about this and relating this story about where they come from. Their faces are going to be grinning from ear to ear. They're going to be smiling and looking at one another and patting one another on the back of this part of the story, because it's such an amazing part of the story. So very excited to reach this part, and the rest of Genesis ends kind of as it begins, on a very, very high note, a very wonderful note of God providing and God really getting things started in the right way. Here you have the Israelites. This is the Genesis, not just of the whole universe, but this is also, as Moses is writing and relating the story, this is also the Genesis of the nation of Israel. So we got to keep those things in mind as we can finish up here. Got 5 more chapters. I'm probably going to do 2 more nights. Friday night, Saturday night, probably we'll finish out Genesis. Saturday night, I'm going to try to do the last 3 chapters together, so that we'll wrap it up. And then next week, I got to get my poll up, but I think a lot of people has already said they wanted to just continue on into Exodus. So that's probably what we're going to do. But thank you for being with me tonight. Hope you guys got something out of this. Hope it was edifying. Still really enjoy doing this, and I really thank y'all for being here. If you did like it, feel free to share. You got any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you need anything else, you can always private message me too. So y'all have a good night. Time for some Minecraft.